The initial snap on one of the crystal perpetrators opened up some visuals to go on. Snap time is much more accurate when it is being focused by the subject of the snap. Since it produces results that are first-person visuals, it is limited to what the subject was looking at the time of the snap. If you are performing a snap on yourself, you know at what point you would have been looking at one thing or another, or talking to one person or another. To perform a snap on another person, trying to hone in on something specific within a certain range of time, is difficult enough when the subject is cooperating. So, it isn't surprising that snapping is not always an exact science when it comes to performing it on uncooperative subjects, like the suspects in an investigation. Oftentimes, you can guess pretty close, based on other testimonies and circumstantial evidence, to get the visual evidence you need within a snap or two. This is important, because the type of snapping we do at the enforcement level goes much deeper, and is far more expensive than the simpler versions people use to pull their memories for hard-keeping. The personal devices are not nearly as precise, and they tend to have a dreaminess to them that some people love and others don't like at all, kind of similar to how your traditional movies look dreamier than a lot of your modern video content does. But with snaps, it affects the actual look of the people and places, not just the way they move. The problem is, in this case, a lot of things were done in the dark, and the audio was deliberately a mess of loud noises. These are the kinds of results we see when people are taking precautions when planning something illegal. Once snap time was improved to the point where it was legally admissible as evidence, those who were planning something nefarious and were savvy enough would do all of their planning in dark places, or keep their eyes shut. They would turn up music or meet in loud places, using taps on each other to communicate, which is something similar to the Morse code used in your world. Still, it is likely that one of the culprits will have erred at some point along the way, and will give up information on members of the group or the scheme being planned. The trouble is, because of the cost and time involved in deep snapping, our investigators tend to start with one or two, and try to draw as much as they can to narrow down potential moments where more might be revealed by a different, unsuspecting participant at one time or another. In this case, the almost useless initial snaps may have forced the investigators to crack down on their interrogations, but it definitely proved that this was not a whim dreamed up by a few disgruntled colonists. On the contrary, this was pointing to something that was likely bigger than any civilian threat we had seen in the history of our life here on the moon. It was also clear that they were not from our colony, or at least not familiar at all with some of our native technology, static cutters in particular. We would hear more within the next D-spin, as they did manage to get a lead on where this group got the static cutters from, since they are only manufactured in our colony in limited quantities. We also go through them fairly quickly, so it is not out of the question that one could have been put together with parts from several others that had been put out of service. We would find out soon enough. For the time being, it looked like we were going to be occupied with something else, as we called our flanking scouts back and prepared for our limited exploratory trip back to the colony, down the heart of the Great Rift.